welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thank you very much for joining us. Hit that subscribe button wherever you are so you can join the show here every day for the great conversations that we get to have, and I am looking forward to this next one. But let me ask you a question. How would you like to get paid for your personal data? Well, that's something that could be a possibility in association with the Data Dividend Project, a new program that has been launched to establish and enforce data property rights. And to talk about this, we have the founder and the person who launched this, former presidential candidate Andrew Yang, joining us right now. Andrew, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. Let's get people money for your data. Let's do it. It's worth tens of billions of dollars, and we're not seeing a dime. What's up with that?
Right. Well, that's what I want to talk about too. I mean, personal data is something that we've been talking about for a long time, and about how important that is, and how companies are making so much money. Facebook, Google, just to name a couple of them. So how would this work? How would consumers get some of that money back?
The great change in the regulatory framework was that California passed the CCPA and went into effect this year. And under the CCPA, everyone in California has the right to know what they're doing with their data, the right to opt out, and potentially even the right to turn it off. So this is an incredibly powerful set of rights. So if you sign up for the Data Dividend Project at ddpforall.com, we will activate your data rights in California and Nevada, where they already have rules on the books. And if you're not in one of those states, then we will go to your state house and say, hey, you should have a law on the books like California and Nevada. And we will also let you know if there are any data breach claims that you're entitled to compensation for, because there are actually these successful lawsuits that most people just don't hear about. But in many cases, you're owed money.
So when it comes to tracking somebody's personal data like this, how would that actually work with the companies that you're I mean, I guess not necessarily targeting, but the big companies that are using all this data? How would you keep track of that?
Well, that is the big question, is who's keeping track of that? And so if you go to Facebook, let's use Facebook because we all understand it. $650 billion company, revenue in the tens of billions of dollars. Most of that is from our data. And so now under these new rules, Facebook has to tell you what they've been doing with your data, who it's been sold to, resold, how it's been packaged. And so we can go to them and say, hey, look, let us know what the heck is going on. And then they have a set of choices. So this is brand new. This law literally went into effect beginning of this year and starts getting enforced next week. So instead of being a black box, these companies should say, look, people's data is still theirs, even if we have access to it through this, this consent agreement. And so we have to come clean with what we're doing with your data. And that's what the Data Dividend Project is all about, is activating people's data property rights so that we can get a straight answer from the tech companies.
When you look at something like this California law, so the California Consumer Privacy Act, like you said, that was just passed earlier this year, that's just in that one state. So that, I would think, would cause some issues when it comes to regulations as far as other states. Do you see the need for a national or federal policy that would be similar to this?
Congress should be following California's lead, but one thing I'm happy to say is that state houses around the country are already considering this legislation. New York, Washington State, Nevada, and California already have it. And if you're a state legislator, you're looking at this saying, wait a minute, why do people in California and Nevada have rights that we don't have here in Massachusetts? And what's the upside? My people are happy and love me. What's the downside? Nothing. So you can see that these state houses are all going to follow California and Nevada's lead. And that's one of the things that the Data Dividend Project is committed to activating around the country.
When you look at this, if this were all to be enacted feasibly exactly how you want it, what are we talking about, like actual money would somebody see? How would somebody be paid for their data, or how much do you think it would be?
Well, you're not going to believe it, but if you sign up for ddpforall.com, there's a chance we can get you money in a matter of days and weeks right now. And certainly, if you fast forward, how much money is your data worth? You can just look at the revenues of the Facebooks and the Googles, tens of billions of dollars a year. For each individual, there's a range. It can be something like minimum tens of dollars a month, but depending upon who you are, it can be up to thousands of dollars a month. So the question is, how are we going to determine and unlock that value?
It's definitely exciting. I mean, I think something that a lot of people will be interested in. I mean, we all want control of our data, I feel like is a big thing that a lot of people want. Something else I want to talk to you just about, with your recent presidential run, there seems to be always this disconnect between Silicon Valley and Washington going back and forth. And for you, you obviously have a very good grasp on the tech industry, and a lot of your policies reflect that. Do you see a role for yourself going forward in Washington in a more official capacity?
I couldn't agree with you more that Washington, D.C. is decades behind the curve on technology. And it's gone from being inconvenient to disastrous over time. So one of my big goals is to try and catch them up. And that's a very tall order. Like it may not be possible for any one individual to somehow drag Washington, D.C. into the 21st century, but we have to do it. We have to try, and that's certainly something I'm committed to.
Looking at this going forward, too, as we see kind of the election unfold, you got Trump, you've got Biden, and obviously there's a lot going on in the world right now that's affecting all kinds of different things. And just curious to get your opinion, being somebody who was running for this, who do you think would be the ideal vice presidential choice for Joe Biden?
No, it's a really personal decision on Joe's part. He knows that because he's been VP for 8 years. So you have to have the right trust and relationship with your partner in governing. And so it's an unanswerable question unless you're Joe Biden, honestly, because that chemistry is going to be really, really important. But I know that Kamala Harris is one of the front runners. I've become friends with Kamala on the trail, and she's a tremendous individual.
And that's a great answer on that. Andrew, I do want to ask you something else because I know you posted this on Twitter as well. You're a sports fan. Obviously, we haven't had a whole lot of sports here that's been going on, but we're seeing some of these leagues start back up. So which sport are you most looking forward to watching here as they open back up?
Well, I'm a big NBA fan. I just did a podcast with JJ Redick, who's a great guy. So I'd have to say the NBA, but you have to also have some caution or reservation because Florida, unfortunately, is one of these new epicenters where they're seeing surges in positive test rates, and that's where all players are going. And so the question is, can you set up a bubble in Orlando that keeps people safe and lets us all enjoy NBA games again?
I want to say thank you very much for joining us here. I did have one final question just about social media and some of the different things that are going on with that as we see Twitter, how they're kind of regulating or taking a look at different tweets and flagging them. Then you have Facebook who's not doing that. Do you feel that social media should take a more active role in moderating content on the sites?
I think Facebook saying that they're a platform, not a publisher, is nonsense. They're literally the biggest publisher in the world at this point. And so they should be held to some kind of standards the same way that a cable network or like other traditional media company is. So I think that you have to take responsibility. You're one of the biggest, richest companies in the world. Like you have to start actually having some kind of standards. And hopefully they'll see that. I mean, they're not a scrappy startup anymore. They're one of the biggest companies in the world.
Well, Andrew, I want to say, like I said, thank you very much. I want to remind everybody, too, so the Data Dividend Project, so people can go there now, sign up.
Yes, get that data dividend, check. DDPforall.com, thank you. Or just Google data dividend. Yeah, who doesn't want this? What is the downside? We're going to try and take back what should be ours in the first place. Our data is our property.
Fantastic. Andrew Yang, thank you very much for being here, sir. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Great seeing you. Stay safe. Thanks, man.
You too.